I'm here with the one and only George Lucas, and we're going to interview each other using your questions. Let's get started. Are you ready, George?
I am ready. Let's go.
At what point in planning Star Wars did you decide Darth Vader was going to be the central character?
Well, to be very honest with you, when I wrote the very first script, it was about Anakin Starkiller and his two kids.
Starkiller?
Starkiller. And he was a rogue Jedi, and there were remnants of that sort of found its way into the final Star Wars. So I would say right from the very beginning, Darth Vader was a central character.
I see, I see. Very interesting.
You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that.
How did it feel to wear the Darth Vader costume for the first time? And were the shorts tight, or were they okay? Tell me. This is a question I don't know. Does Darth Vader wear briefs, or does he wear shorts?
You'd like to know, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
He actually goes commando. It was exhilarating. You know, in being given the task of playing the connective tissue into Darth Vader, to get to actually put on the costume meant a lot of finality and closure, and that was a very emotional experience for me. So though it was very empowering and all that good stuff, there was a certain hint of sadness as well.
It was a lot of fun to watch you get back up there and storm around on the set.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since that happened.
Yeah, it was good fun. I mean, what was most fun actually was to watch other people take in Vader for the first time, because you could see the excitement in their eyes and that awe and a tinge of fear as well. Why did you start in the middle of the Star Wars story and then go back to the beginning?
Well, originally Star Wars was one simple little movie based on a Saturday matinee serial. The idea was that you came in, you saw episode 4, you don't know what happened before, you don't know what happened after. The original script, it was one script. It started with Darth Vader coming in the front door. It ended with Darth Vader throwing the Emperor down the tube. And so you got a much better picture of the tragedy of Darth Vader, which is what it was really about. When I started writing, it got too big. I didn't have the money. I would never get a studio to do it. So I just took the first third and decided I'd make that into a movie, and I would come back to the other two parts later, which is why I ended up with sequel rights, because I was determined to see to it that all got finished, that movie that I started with. I started in the middle. It was episode 4 right from the beginning, because I don't like beginnings. You know, I like to cut right into the middle of the action. That's kind of what we do on Indiana Jones. It's kind of what I do on American Graffiti. It's just, you know, I don't like to do the exposition part. But if you start in episode 4, you still have to write the backstory, the exposition, in order to know where you're going. You do a little profile on each of the characters, who they are, where they came from, what their feelings are about things. And in this case, the sort of political atmosphere of the Republic and the Empire. How did the Republic become the Empire? And everybody's role in that. And that's really what was the backstory. When I finished Star Wars, I figured that was it. You know, once I finished Return of the Jedi. And I never really expected to go back and turn the backstory into a movie. But as time went on, and I realized that the icon of the evil Darth Vader so sort of overwhelmed his character, that the idea that he is actually a tragic character kind of got, it's there, but it got lost a little bit, overwhelmed, I should say. And so by going back and telling Darth Vader's story, telling the whole story right from the very beginning, I was able to get the full range of all the things that were going on and how everything fit together.
I see.
This is from Bay Guy in Florida. If you could bring one thing from the Star Wars world into the real world, what would it be?
Ooh, that's an easy one. Definitely the lightsaber. I gotta say, it was one of the real pleasures of putting on the costume every day, was to attach that lightsaber to the belt and just know that it was there. You know, I believe your son Jet has an interest in maybe working on it, but no, I mean, there's a great line in this last film where Obi-Wan uses a gun and he's like, it's so uncivilized. There is something elegant about the lightsaber, and the noise it makes, and just the glow. It's
fun to thrash around with.
It's fun to thrash around with, absolutely. This one's from Yoda43015. George, what can you tell us about Yoda's species and the character's off-screen history?
Well, Yoda, you should know better than I do. I mean, the truth about Yoda is that in the original movie, Obi-Wan went to the very end of the film, and Yoda didn't exist. So as I got through starting to shoot the movie, episode 4, I realized that when I came to the end battle, that Obi-Wan had nothing to do but sit around and watch the battle like Princess Leia. And then in the next film, he basically sat around and taught Luke how to use the Force and things. I felt that his character had become so strong the way Alec Guinness had presented it that I really couldn't do that. He was too noble, so I had to kill him off. So when I killed him off, I had to replace him when I got to the second movie, and I could do certain things by having him come back as a ghost from the Force, because I had decided to kill him off in a metaphysical way rather than a physical way. And but I couldn't do everything. I needed a physical body there to do things, and so I needed something, and I created Yoda, who was 2 feet tall, large, with green ears. But to be very honest with you, I never really figured out where he came from, what his species is called. It doesn't even have a name. I mean, maybe it's somewhere, but I don't know what it is. So he's a mystery character. He's a magical character. He has no background. He comes and he goes. He's the subversive, secret, mysterious stranger that enters the film and then exits at the end. This is from Raiden 12. How did you feel when you first saw yourself edited into the end of Return of the Jedi?
Well, I got a real kick out of it. You know, I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to see myself standing next to Alec Guinness, and that was neat for me. It allowed me to be in the original trilogy as well, and I feel just more embedded in this saga. So I really liked it.
Well, I'm glad. It was added in because it's a way of finishing off the entire series. The idea was that your inner person would go back to where we left it off. When it turned to the dark side, you know, when you got burned up and everything, but before you got burned up. So when you come back to the good side of the Force, that it's your former persona that survives, not the Darth Vader persona.
I read an article that says you want to make non-narrative films. What kind of films do you mean?
Well, the films I'm going to work on are more experimental. They're a little hard to describe. I worked with filmmaker Godfrey Reggio on kind of abstract films. One of them that I helped produce was called Powahquatsi. When I grew up in San Francisco here, I was a big fan of the Canyon cinema, sort of underground films, Jordan Belson, Scott Bartlett, people like that. And when I went to film school, they taught us film montage. The head of the department had been right before I got there, a man named Vorkapich, who'd worked with Eisenstein, who really dealt with pure film in the silent movie sense and montage and how you tell stories and things without being linear and literal about it. So I'm going to go back to that kind of filmmaking. I think it's hard to describe now what that is because, quite frankly, there's not much of it out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to it. What is your favorite scene from the entire Star Wars saga?
That's a very tough question because there's a lot of scenes that I like. I would say I'm still partial to the end battle in Episode 4. It's a lot of fun, it's very exciting, and still, for me, it has the same energy that it had when I first made it.
It's a favorite of mine as well.
This is from Ashley, and she says, Hayden, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and it always seems like you get asked the same questions in interviews. What question have you grown the most tired of answering?
I have to say one that I get a lot is how am I going to deal with the possible typecasting that I might encounter in the future from being in a film like this and from playing such an iconic role. And quite frankly, I've had enough of it. It's not a question I can really answer, you know. I can't.
Say, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making blockbuster movies and billions of dollars. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
I'm sure that will go over well. Which of the Star Wars characters do you most identify with and why?
Well, I think originally I identified with Luke when I started the whole series. As I got into the new series, I think I began to identify with Yoda since I got a lot older. I'm 743 years old now, so I can identify with him more than when I was young and Luke's age when I started out this whole thing. If you didn't play Anakin, what other character from Star Wars would you want to be?
I have to say that I've always been a big Boba Fett fan. I don't know. There's something about being a bounty hunter that just is innately cool, and just the look of the character is great, and the voice, you know, resonates well. I say your film is an independent film. My friend says it's too big of a movie to be independent. Who's right?
Well, it all depends on what you classify as independent. Some people have sort of gotten it in their mind that the budget determines whether you're independent or not, which I'm not sure that's what the idea means. I classify independent as being independent from outside forces or influences or corporate pressure to do things that are against your nature as an artist. I have been extremely lucky. I have been pretty much independent from the very first time I started making movies. Part of it was because I was up here and out of the way in San Francisco and nobody bothered to worry about the movies because they were so small. And then by the time I got to Star Wars, I was working in England and that was too far away for them to deal with. They did come in and cause a huge amount of trouble at the end after the films were finished. But by the time we got to DVDs, I was able to put them back the way I wanted them. And so I have managed to keep my original visions of all my films intact. And once I did Star Wars, the main reason that I stepped down from directing and became kind of the overall executive producer was that I also at the same time had to build up the companies and get a financial paradigm working that would allow me to not have to go back to the studios anymore, that I could be free of, you know, begging for money. And so I've never had to go back to the studio. I've been able to make the movies exactly the way I want. When I did episode 1, you know, there was a lot of people around in the various departments that were very upset. They said that I was going to destroy the series because nobody wanted to see a movie about a 9-year-old boy. I'm sure that if I had been in the studio, they wouldn't have let me do that. I'm sure a lot of the fans might have appreciated that. But I wanted to tell the story of Anakin. I wanted to start it with him as a 9-year-old boy. And even though it wasn't the most popular decision, it was my decision and it was the way I wanted to do it. And that, I think, is what determines what independent means.
What's next for the Star Wars mythology, George?
Well, the saga is now finished. As I say, it starts with Anakin as an 8-year-old and ends when Anakin dies. And the story is really about Anakin. We are going to do a TV series. It's been out in little bits and pieces as the Clone Wars. It'll continue as the Clone Wars. It's going to be a 3D animated series about a half an hour long. It's going to deal with all of the heroes and Yoda and everybody and villains during the period of the Clone Wars. We're doing another live action show, which involves incidental characters, very minor characters in the Star Wars saga.